Now we can hop into the Big Ten.
I'm excited to see. Who you got. Who you got winning some of these divisions here.
Well, let's do the Big Ten East first, shall
Okay.
we? And let's start at the basement instead of the top. I'm guessing we both have the same team at number 7, but I could be wrong. Who do you have finishing last in the Big Ten East?
I have the Indiana Hoosiers.
I'm wrong. I have the Rutgers
Really?
Scarlet Knights.
I have Indiana going 3-9. They got a transfer quarterback from Tennessee, Traven Jackson. He was their third string guy at Tennessee. Then they have 5 transfer starters on defense, led by Andre Carter from Western Michigan, who had 13 and a half tackles for loss last year. I don't think they'll be very good, and I would not be surprised if this is Tom Allen's last year, assuming that buyout goes down.
I have Indiana at 6, 4-8 overall, 2-7 in the conference. I have them in the conference beating Rutgers, and I have them also beating Michigan State at home. Traven Jackson should be mentioned. He is the brother of Trace Jackson Davis.
Didn't know
So
that.
there's the connection there. Yes, I was kind of surprised he didn't go to IU out of high school. He went down to Tennessee. You said 5 new guys on defense or transfers. They only have 2 returning starters on defense. Which once again, maybe that's for the
Might be
better.
a good thing.
I don't know. They start off. We'll get to the picks later, but start off this week hosting Ohio State. Seems like they kick off their season more times than not against Ohio State. They do host Indiana State. They play Louisville at Lucas Oil and host the Akron Zips. So should get 2 wins there in the non-conference. I don't think they'll beat Louisville, but maybe they will. My last pick in the East, Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I have them at 3-9, 1-8 in the conference.
I have them 6th at 4-8.
Greg Schiano. I don't know. I mean, they got to be patient here. Rutgers just doesn't add much for football to the conference.
They scored 17 points a game last year.
Yeah, 17.4 points per game. You're not going to win a lot
while giving up 30 a game on defense. So they're pretty bad.
Yeah. They return their quarterbacks. Gavin, I cannot read my writing. Winnat, I believe his name is. I cannot read my writing, but he is not a transfer or anything. So he was on their team last year. They open up the season as well this week with a conference game against Northwestern. So that's going to be a battle of the juggernauts there. They host Temple. They host Virginia Tech. And then they host Wagner in week 5. So, interesting little non-conference. There's a lot of interesting non-conference games for Big Ten opponents I've seen this year. Some are kind of mixed in the middle of the schedule, but most of them are in your first 3 weeks. So, who do you have at number 5 in the Big Ten East?
I have Michigan State finishing 5th at 6-6.
Got them bowl eligible.
I do.
Tuck coming, as everybody was saying last year.
Yeah.
I have the Spartans as 5 as well, but I don't have them going bowling. I have them at 5-7, 3-6 in the conference.
Yeah, Noah Kim is likely their starting quarterback, and he was solid backing up Peyton Thorne, who transferred to Auburn. And then, of course, their running back, Jalen Berger, returns, who had a pretty good year. And Cal Holiday, who was the first-team All-Big Ten linebacker at 120 tackles. So there's a decent nucleus there, at least.
Yeah, not only did they lose Peyton Thorne, they lost their best wide receiver, Keon Coleman, to Florida State. So they're impacted by the worst for the transfer portal. They're non-conference. They have 3 home games. Central Michigan, which playing a directional school is always kind of nerve-wracking. Playing Richmond and playing Washington. That game's on Peacock. I think that's one of the first ones, if not the first one on Peacock this year. So I think they played at Washington last year, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a home and home.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're part of the Big Ten East. This should be stated for anybody who doesn't already know. This is the last year of the divisions. Not sure what they're going to do going forward next year now with 18 teams. But this is last year the Big Ten East and West, and of course, if you're on the East, your schedule is going to be a little harder than it is on the West. But and to throw in a really good team like Washington, who I have winning the Pac-12, it's not easy for the Spartans. So, who do you have 4th?
I have Maryland.
I have the Terps as well.
Feel like it's a clear top 3 and a clear bottom 4.
I do too.
Although I think Maryland's quite a bit better than the other 3 teams in that bottom 4. I do have them 7-5. Tua's brother is the probably top returning quarterback in the Big Ten this year. Running back Roman Hemby had 989 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. They had a transfer wide receiver, Ty Chambers, who had over 1,000 yards at FIU in 2021. And they were halfway decent defensively last year, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah, they lost some close games last year. Tala, to his little brother, Talia, whatever. I just call him to his little brother because I know I'm going to botch his name every week. Yeah, he's either the top returning quarterback or the second. I've seen a couple people have J.J. McCarthy of Michigan ranked as a top returning quarterback in the Big Ten. But I think Maryland's going to be pretty good. I mean, I got them 7-5 as well, 4-5 in the conference, but I could see them 8-4 pretty easily. Don't know if they can get the 9. If so, 9's their max of their ceiling, I would say. But it will be an interesting year for Mike Locksley and company because they only return 9 of 22 starters. So it is a new nucleus there in College Park. I think, is that right? Yeah. College Park, Maryland. So who do you have finishing third in the East?
I have Penn State at 10-2. Drew Aller was pretty good backing up Sean Clifford as a true freshman last year. I believe he came in against Purdue and played.
He did.
Nicholas Singleton as a freshman running back had over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. They also have Katron Allen, who's a running back, had over 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. They're going to put up some points. And then Kalen King is one of the better DBs in the conference. He'll likely be a first-team All-Big Ten sort of guy. So I honestly think it could be a coin flip between the top 3, depending on how things shake out. But I think Penn State will be really, really good.
Well, I have Penn State winning the East.
Oh,
it was one of my 23 bowl predictions for 2023. Yeah. So when I made that back in January, I kind of got to stick with it. I have the Nittany Lions going 11-1, 8-1 in the conference, with that loss being at Ohio State. You've pretty much hit on all my notes I had written down for Penn State. Manny Diaz is their defense coordinator, second year there, old ex-Miami, Florida coach. He did a real good job with that defense last year. They should be solid again. I think this is do or die time for James Franklin. I know he just got a big contract extension, but I feel like this is the year they really need to get over the hump. They're preseason ranked 7th. They got all the talent to do it.
Yeah. It does feel like this is his most talented team coming in, at least hype-wise. It feels like that.
Yep. But, yeah, it'll be interesting with Drew Aller. I mean, Penn State fans love him. They love what he did kind of in reserve last year, but now he is the guy. There's really no unknown on him, so how can he handle the pressure? That's when we'll find out this weekend against West Virginia, even though I don't think West Virginia is going to be very good. But I am glad they're getting that rivalry back together. That they used to play every year, or this is the 60th meeting between the two schools. It started in like 1943, I believe, but it's the first time they're playing since '92. So for whatever reason, they took a break for a while. So yes. And with Penn State winning, my third place team is Ohio State.
There's no way Ryan Day survives a third place finish. Really? You think so?
Well, here's what's crazy. You're probably right, but I'm trying to find my notes. I got notes all over the place here. You're probably right, but I still have them finishing 10-2 and 7-2 in the conference.
Yeah,
but
finishing 10-2.
The problem is I have one of those 2 losses being at Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can survive 3 losses to Michigan, but my goodness, at 99% of the schools in the country, if you have the overall record that Ryan Day does so far in Columbus, they're building a statue for you.
Yeah. If Illinois were to go 10-2, they would burn Memorial Stadium to the ground out of happiness.
Yeah. Same thing with Purdue, though. New renovations at Ross State to be out the window, and they have to be renovated all over again.
Yeah.
Key question for Ohio State is who's going to be their quarterback? Is it going to be Devin Brown or Kyle McCord? I have not heard either way yet.
They have not. Yeah, they have not even announced. It does sound like McCord probably is going to be the guy. Or
could they go 2 quarterbacks?
When has that ever worked?
Rarely.
Rarely.
Very rarely.
Maybe they do.
But when you have guys like Mayan Williams at running back, Trayvon Henderson running back, and Marvin Harrison Jr. wide receiver, you might be able to work a 2-quarterback system out.
And even Emeka Egbuka, who had over 1,100 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns last year.
Right.
So, yeah.
They do have 3 new starters on the offensive line, so they're going to have to work that out a little bit. I just still think they're going to be really good, but I just think Penn State, Michigan are going to be better.
Yeah.
So you have Penn State number 2, and Michigan.
Penn State 3rd, Ohio State 2.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Michigan 1. I have Michigan 2, but once again, I have Michigan really good. I have them at 11-1 with their lone loss. Their lone loss being at Penn State.
I believe that's the lone loss I have for them as well.
So, I mean, Jim Harbaugh is out the first 3 games of the season, but those first 3 games are against Eastern Carolina, Bowling Green, and I don't even know week 2. I can't read my writing. I wrote so fast earlier today.
It is kind of cool. He chose a different assistant to be the head coach for each of those games, and he has one guy, I think it's week 2, coaching the first half, and then another guy coaching the second half. So that's kind of cool. He did that.
Mike Hart's the second half coach of that game,
and then I want to say it's his nephew, maybe.
Was his nephew or is his other? Yeah, I think nephew, or is it, or is there a third brother?
I have no idea.
But his dad's His dad's an assistant for all these games.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. Is a good way to put it for the milkman. Harbaugh's done a pretty good job last 2 years, back-to-back Big Ten champs, back-to-back playoff appearances. Definitely saved his job. JJ McCarthy, a lot of expectations on him going into the year. They got one of the best, if not the best, returning running back in the country in Blake Corum. Yeah. And their defense only gave up 16.1 points per game last year. So.
Blake Corum's an interesting Heisman pick. I've seen Michigan fans say if he doesn't get hurt in week 12, he wins the Heisman. There's no way he wins it over Caleb Williams last year.
I agree.
Yeah, he's probably going to be in that top 3 to 5 convo heading into the year anyway.
Yes. So you have Michigan out of the East. I have Penn State out of the East. Let's break down the West and see who we have in the Big Ten championship game. I'm pretty sure we both have the same team at number 7.
Yeah, Northwestern.
Northwestern
winning 2 games though.
I have them 2-10 and 0-9 in conference.
Yeah, I don't think I have them win a conference game. They do have a transfer quarterback from Cincinnati, Ben Bryant, who threw 21 touchdowns last year. That's the only note I wrote on them. So
David Braun is the new head coach. Their 2 wins, I have them beating Temple at home in week 2 and Howard in midseason.
I think that's what I have as well.
Yep. So, and it's not going to be very good there in Evanston, I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think. Who do you have finishing number 6 in the West?
I have the Purdue Boilermakers.
I have the Purdue Boilermakers as well.
I have them finishing 5-7.
I have them finishing 5-7 as well.
Oh, okay.
I know that's shocking everybody. That's shocking everybody, but
I thought for sure you'd have them second or something.
No, I really, really wanted to put them at 6-6, and I took my time and almost had it, but just couldn't come up with that 6th win on the schedule. Their schedule is tough.
It's tough. Yeah.
It's very tough. I mean, when you have a non-conference, Fresno State, who's a 10-win team last year, at Virginia Tech, which Virginia Tech's not the Virginia Tech they were a decade ago, but still Lane Stadium in Blacksburg's a tough place to play. And then Syracuse at night, who was bowl eligible last year and beat Purdue last year. There's no cupcakes in that non-con. And then your East opponents are Indiana, but also Ohio State and Michigan. Pretty tough sledding.
That's pretty tough. I will say, assuming Ryan Walters has his traditionally good defense, that significantly raises the floor. Because if you can get good defense, you can keep you in the games. This Purdue team kind of reminds me of the Illinois team in 2021, which was Walters' first year at Illinois. Took over a more talented defense, but the defense that was awful in 2020 turned them into solid, and then they ended up going 5-7, being pretty close to being bowl eligible. So that's kind of who this Purdue team reminds me of. They do have a much better quarterback play than Illinois did with Hudson Card coming in.
Yeah, Hudson Card. Everybody says he's the real deal. I mean, but that's practicing against your own team. I mean, he did get some time at Texas. He was pretty good last year in reserve against Alabama when Quinn Ewers went out, and I think he also played against Texas Tech, West Virginia, and somebody else last year. But he wasn't going to be the guy down there. I mean, got Quinn Ewers, you got Arch Manning, you got some other guy down there too. So Walters really wanted him. That was his first plan of action when he became Purdue's head coach. Went and got him, and I think this team will go as Hudson Card can go. But my concern is the offensive line. Offensive line's already banged up going into this week. Two of the regular starters aren't going to be playing this weekend. So can they keep Hudson Card healthy? Also, I'm real curious how Graham Harrell's going to incorporate this air raid style because I don't think it can be a flat out air raid when your best offensive weapon's your running back and Devin Mockabee. You got to get him involved some. Maybe that's getting him involved with receptions out of the backfield. I think Tyron Tracy's going to be in the mix there, running back. He's a converted wide receiver transfer from Iowa. Last year he was just wide receiver. This year he asked the staff if he could switch to running back, and he is the backup behind Mockabee now. And who's going to be wide receiver number one for Purdue? I'm guessing it's going to be a guy named Deion Burks, who is I think a redshirt sophomore, maybe junior. It could be T.J. Sheffield, Marshawn Rice. Abdul Rahman Yassine. I mean, they got a lot of guys who have played, but not in big roles. So now, it's going to be no David Bell or Charlie Jones. That's what I'm trying to say. But who's going to step up? And really, I think their number one receiving target is going to be a tight end named Garrett Miller, who blew his knee out last year. He's a fifth-year senior. But today the depth chart came out, and he is not playing this week, and his knee's not quite ready. So hopefully he will be in the next coming weeks. Only 4 returning starters on defense. I, for the first time in years, have to print out a roster for Saturday because they have so many newcomers. They have all 4 new cornerbacks. I have no idea. Like first string, second string, I have no idea the corners this year. And they have a true freshman starting at safety next to Cam Allen, which is the first true freshman starting at safety I can remember at Purdue having since like '06. So, and another Thieneman. His 2 older brothers played at Purdue. He's the third one to come through. So, really looking forward to the season, but a lot of question marks. I wanted 6-6. I think 6-6 would be a great season, but I'm trying to be realistic here, and I got them at 5-7. 3-6 in conference. 3-6 in conference. So
I'm proud of you, T-Dog.
Yep. Who do you got fifth in the East? Excuse me.
I have Nebraska.
I think I got Illinois, if I remember right. I do have Illinois.
Nebraska finishing 6-6. Matt Rule is there. Obviously, he's a proven program builder. He was at Temple, and he built them up to a really good program. Then he took over a dumpster fire at Baylor, built them back up. Was not good in the NFL, but I think he'll get Nebraska back to being at least competent in the Big Ten West. They got a transfer quarterback from Georgia Tech, Jeff Sims, who's a dual threat guy. He started a lot of games at Georgia Tech. They're 102nd in scoring offense and 77th in scoring defense. There's a lot to fix there in Lincoln.
I have Nebraska fourth at 7-5 and 4-5 in conference. That week 2 matchup next week's gonna be interesting out in Boulder, Colorado, against Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and Colorado. Nebraska used to be a Big 12 rivalry. So that's going to be an interesting one. They also play in a non-con. They host Northern Illinois and host Louisiana Tech. So pretty manageable home stretch for the non-con there. But I didn't have too many notes written on them besides what you already said about Matt Rule and Jeff Sims, the transfer from Georgia Tech. So my 5th pick was the Illinois Fighting Illini. I have them 6-6, 3-6 in the conference. I'm probably not giving them enough credit. I still think their defense is going to be pretty good, even though I'm hoping it's not, because that means then Ryan Walters meant that much to the program. But I don't know much about their transfer quarterback either. I'll just let you take it away with Illinois. I don't know where you have them finishing, but I
haven't finished
a lot more than I do. A lot more than I do.
I have them finishing 4th at 7-5. I think their floor is 6-6, probably ceiling 8-4. This is the first time coming into the year that we think, man, if Illinois doesn't make a bowl, it was pretty disastrous season. So I think they'll be solid. Luke Altmaier is their new quarterback from Ole Miss. Started a few games there, but then decided to transfer. Has 3 years of eligibility. From everything I've read, as far as practice goes, he looks like the real deal as well. He's a good leader. Very accurate quarterback. It reminds them a little bit of Tommy DeVito last year, except he doesn't have that kind of personality. But if I told you Isaiah Williams is the leading returning pass catcher in the Big Ten, would you believe me?
No.
He had 82 catches last year, which is more than Marvin Harrison, who had 77, and then Emeka whatever his name is, Egbuka, who had over 70 catches. Of course, Charlie Jones is in the NFL now. But he had 82 catches. They think he'll have obviously a very big role, but they think he'll have a fantastic senior year. He's either a junior or senior. It's COVID rules are still.
It's so hard to tell. Yeah.
Defense should be really good again. They have the law firm back. Newton and Randolph there in the middle. Newton's a projected first-round pick, could be Defensive Player of the Year. They're hoping in the Big Ten. They did, however, lose their entire secondary to the NFL. 3 guys got drafted in the first 3 rounds, and then Kendall Smith was an undrafted free agent by the Washington Commanders. They think he'll make the team, so they have to replace those guys. However, a lot of those guys sat out of the bowl game. And so some of the young guys got some opportunities against a team that throws the ball a ton in Mississippi State. I think they only gave up 10 or 13 points. So hopefully that carries into the year. They do have a transfer safety from FIU, Demetrius Hill, who was a freshman All-American last year, had close to 100 tackles. They think he'll kind of be a star on their defense. But they will be missing one of their better safeties in Matthew Bailey this week, and I think week 2 as well, because he had an injury in spring ball. I think he'll be back shortly. But it's all about quarterback play. But Illinois returned, I think, 4 starters on the offensive line. The running backs, obviously losing Chase Brown, who had 1,600 yards, is a big loss. But Reggie Love's back, who had a really good game against Northwestern the final week of the year, and Josh McCray as well. And they have a true freshman, Caden Fegan, who should be getting a lot of opportunities in the backfield. So overall, I think 6-6 to 8-4, which is where we both have them.
Yep.
Makes sense for them.
Who do you got finishing number 3?
I have the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
We are on the same page there. I have them 8-4, 6-3 in conference.
I have them 7-5 as well. Quarterback play was bad last year. Tanner Morgan got hurt, and he was not effective when he was in there. So Ethan Kaliakmanis,
good pull, because I didn't want to read that one.
Who should be the starter, is back there. He was okay. Chris Ottman-Bell is back for his about 12th season.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
At Minnesota. They do have a transfer wide receiver from Western Michigan, Corey Crooms, who had over 800 yards there. They also have a transfer running back from Western Michigan, Sean Tyler, over 1,000 yards the last 2 seasons. And they have a transfer linebacker from Western Michigan, Jack Seelig, who had 70 tackles for them. So I don't think
Fleck's been there since 2017, so I wouldn't. Yeah,
Fleck's stealing any of these guys.
No. They think they're gonna have a 3-head monster at running back with Taylor, Zach Evans, and Darius Taylor. So they have 2 Taylors there. That's weird. But they only have 2 returning offensive linemen or starting offensive linemen. That was kind of the strength of their team last year. Of course, with Mohammed I don't remember what his last name was. I am butchering this. But Minnesota's got an interesting non-conference. They host Eastern Michigan after hosting Nebraska this week. Then they go to North Carolina week 3, and then they have Louisiana in week 5 they host. So kind of interesting there. Who do you got finishing second?
I have the Wisconsin Badgers at 8-4.
I have the Iowa Hawkeyes at 9-3.
Wisconsin, Tanner Mordecai transfer from SMU, 33 touchdown passes.
Great first name.
Of course. Oh man, why did I not write his name down? Luke Fickell. Is there at Wisconsin, leaving Cincinnati. They got a transfer from Temple. He's an outside linebacker, defensive end. Darian Varner had 7.5 sacks last year. It's kind of hard to project where these new head coached teams are going to finish, but Luke Fickell has a track record of building a pretty good program there, and with the transfer portal, you can be good right away.
Yeah, and their defense returns 8 starters. Braylon Allen, stud running back, but they brought in an air raid offensive coordinator. So kind of like Purdue, it's going to be interesting if they go complete air raid or like a mix. Got to think it's going to be a mix with the running back stables there and the tradition at Wisconsin. But the reason I have Wisconsin winning the Big Ten, and I have them at 10-2 and 8-1 in conference, because I think they caught a break with their schedule this year.
Yeah.
They're non-con. They host Buffalo. They go to Washington State, which that is one of my 2 losses for them, is out there at Washington State. And then they host Georgia Southern, but they have no Michigan on the schedule. Ohio State they do, but they host them. They usually do pretty well at Camp Randall against Ohio State. I mean, other than that, I mean, their toughest road game probably at Illinois, or it could be at Minnesota with rivalry week. I actually have them losing at Minnesota.
Illinois did go into Camp Randall and beat them 34-10
smoked them.
last year.
Yeah. So, I mean, they get Iowa at home. Like I said, Ohio State at home. They get Nebraska at home. They go to Purdue, but they've haven't lost to Purdue since 2003. So, yeah. So I have them 1, and I have the Hawkeyes at 9-3, 6-3 in the conference, finishing runner-up.
I have them winning it at 8-4. I think the winner of the West will be 8-4 again.
I'll probably give them too much credit at 10-2 with Wisconsin, but that's what I do every year. I put the Big Ten up way too high because.
Yeah, Iowa scored 17 points a game last year. There's now something in Ferentz's contract that they have to score at least 21. So when they have an opportunity, they're going to be running up that score because Kirk doesn't want to let his son go. Cade McNamara is coming in, who battled out with JJ McCarthy for like 2 years. It felt like, and he finally left. Although he is coming off an injury, and they asked him. I literally watched something on the news when I was in Iowa this past weekend. And he sounds, I'm doing okay. So yeah, I don't know if
he didn't want to talk about it very much. Yeah. So yeah, I saw that clip.
The defense should be great, as it is always.
And special teams should be good too.
Yeah. They did lose their top defensive tackle, Noah Shannon, for the entire season with a gambling suspension.
That's right. Forgot about that.
The defense still, it probably shouldn't matter. If the offense can score 21 to 24 points a game, they have a real good shot to maybe even win 10 games because that defense will be so good.
Yeah. They also got McNamara, one of his targets, Eric All, transfer tight end from Michigan. And then they got Seth Anderson, wide receiver from Charleston Southern, and Caleb Brown, wide receiver from Ohio State. I presume I put OSU. I presume that's Ohio State, not Oregon State.
Or Oklahoma State.
Or Oklahoma State. Yeah, I think it's Ohio State. So, so yes, you got Iowa against Michigan, and I have Wisconsin against Penn State. Who do you have winning the Big Ten?
I have Michigan over Iowa.
I have Penn State over Wisconsin.